Now we will begin Part A with the first conversation. Number 1.
Do you think I could use your computer to type my research paper?
If you don't mind waiting a couple of hours.
What does the woman imply? Number 2.
Look, I got a letter from my cousin Jeff in Alaska.
Can I get the return address from the envelope?
What will the man probably do? Number 3.
This book is 2 weeks overdue. And I see from our records that another borrower has already come in looking for it.
I'm terribly sorry, but I was called out of town unexpectedly for a few weeks.
What does the man imply? Number 4.
I just saw Larry from our chemistry study group, and he said the grades we got on our midterm exam, they've finally been put up.
They have? Where?
What does the woman want to know? Number 5.
Have a good trip. And I hope you won't have too long a walk from the car to the check-in area. That's a lot of luggage for you to carry by yourself.
Well, I'll get the driver to give me a hand.
What does the man mean? Number 6.
I don't know what to think. Which outfit should I wear to my job interview? The black dress or the navy blue suit?
Well, Jane, you've got to consider the image you want to present, and I'd say the suit is more professional looking.
What does the man imply? Number 7.
Now that you've finished writing your thesis, do you think you'll have time to sit back and take it easy? Maybe take a little vacation?
Believe me, that's exactly what I intend to do.
What does the woman mean? Number 8.
Did you hear? They're moving Kathy to the New York office.
They are? That's news to me.
What does the man mean? Number 9.
Please excuse the mess. I haven't had any time to clean.
What mess? You should see how I left my room this morning.
What does the woman imply? Number 10.
$200 to fix my computer? I thought you said you could do it for $50.
I did, but it's not the keyboard after all. It's a major part inside the machine. That'll cost a lot more to replace.
What does the man mean? Number 11.
What a great television program. That was really stimulating, don't you think?
Well, only if you like politics.
What does the woman imply about the television program? Number 12.
Hi, Dan. I just came by to see if you wanted to work out at the gym with me this afternoon.
I'd love to, but I don't think I'm up to it today. I'm coming down with a cold.
What does the man mean? Number 13.
The research project for my political science course on the presidency is due in just 2 weeks. But there's so much to talk about. I don't know how to even begin to pick a subject.
You know, Mary's doing her graduate work in political science. She would certainly know how to narrow the topic down.
What does the man suggest the woman do? Number 14.
You wouldn't happen to have an extra blank cassette I could buy off you, would you?
As a matter of fact, I do.
What will the woman probably do next? Number 15.
My cousin Lisa said she mailed me some books, but they never came.
Well, you just moved into a new dormitory. She probably sent them out before she had your new address.
What does the man imply? Number 16.
A light jacket like this ought to be warm enough for today, don't you think? It's been pretty mild the last couple of days.
I'd go back in and get something heavier. If you don't need it when you get to campus, you can always just leave it in the car.
What does the man suggest the woman do? Number 17.
Excuse me, Professor. Since we're having a test next Wednesday on Chapter 4, I was wondering if there are any more problems I can work on to review for it.
Well, the ones I have, I've already given out in class. But it probably wouldn't hurt to go back and redo a few of them.
What does the professor say about problems that can be used for review? Number 18.
This is incredible. Only the first day of our Modern American History course, and we've already been assigned to read 3 chapters by the next time we meet.
If that surprises you, then obviously you've never had a class before with Professor Smith.
What does the woman imply? Number 19.
Excuse me? This roommate matching questionnaire, it's so long, and I'm kind of in a hurry. Do I have to answer all the questions?
Just the first side. The ones on the back are optional.
What does the woman mean? Number 20.
Isn't this a terrific painting? It'll look great on the wall in my office.
To be honest, I don't know what you see in it.
What does the woman mean? Go on to the next page. Number 21.
Did you hear what George did last night? He was cooking dinner for the members of the drama club, and he spilled spaghetti sauce all over the kitchen.
Doesn't surprise me one bit. He did the same thing last semester, only it was the Spanish club and chocolate syrup.
What does the man imply about George? Number 2.
You're not planning to transfer to a different uni next year, are you?
If I were, you'd be the first to know.
What does the woman imply? Number 23.
There's nothing I hate worse than straightening up my apartment before a party.
It's not so stressful if you don't wait until the last minute.
What does the woman imply the man should do? Number 24.
What are you doing cooped up here in the lounge on such a beautiful spring day? I can't understand why everyone isn't out there in the fresh air getting some sunshine.
You wouldn't be saying that if you had my allergies.
What does the woman imply? Number 25.
You've made enough soup to feed an army.
This way we'll have plenty left over for lunch tomorrow.
What does the man mean? Number 26.
I'm really torn. I need a new bicycle, and I just can't decide which one to get. There are just too many different kinds to choose from.
Well, don't ask me. As far as I'm concerned, a bike's a bike. It's just transportation.
What does the woman mean? Number 27.
I was surprised to see Ed in the job center today. Do you think he's unhappy over in admissions? He's about the best worker they have over there.
I know. But I hear that his boss has never said a thing to him to acknowledge that. And how would you feel if you'd been there 3 years and still made the same salary?
What does the woman imply? Number 28.
Did you get caught driving in that downpour after work yesterday? Everyone had their lights on, and I could hardly see where I was going.
That must have been a local storm. I go home in the opposite direction and it was fine.
What does the woman mean? Number 29.
Now that was a delicious meal. Shall we order dessert?
Not if we expect to make it back in time for our 2 o'clock lecture.
What does the man mean? Number 30.
Matthew just told me he's moving to a new apartment, way over in Oakville. That's so far away. Can you believe it?
Oh, so that's why he's trying to buy a car.
What can be inferred about the woman? This is the end of Part A. Go on to the next page. Now we will begin Part B with the first conversation. Questions 31 through 34. Listen to a conversation between two students who have just arrived at their university.
I see you've still got all your suitcases with you, too. We must have the same problem.
Let me guess. Your room's been given to someone else?
Yep,
I don't get it. They sent me my room number a long time ago.
me too. Well, at least there's room in another dorm, Bundy Hall.
That's where they're putting me, too. But you realize that unless you have a car, Bundy's at least a 25-minute walk from the center of campus. And don't count on taking the campus bus. It runs at really inconvenient times.
Great way to start your college career. But, I don't know. Maybe there's a positive side to all this. Since we'll be so far away from everything, we'll be forced to use our time wisely.
True. I've heard lots of first-year students get into trouble because they hang out every day at the student center till it closes.
Exactly. And not only that, we'll get plenty of exercise from all that extra walking.
Yeah, and it's not exactly easy walking either. Around here, you just about need a pair of hiking boots and to enjoy mountain climbing.
You kind of got a point there. But at least there are great vistas from some of the buildings, not to mention the possibility of some serious sled riding when it snows.
Number 31. What problem do the students have? Number 32. What does the woman imply about the campus? Number 33. What is one disadvantage of living in Bundy Hall? Number 34. According to the man, what mistake do many first-year students make? Questions 35 through 38. Listen to part of a discussion in a social psychology class.
One of the most common questions we ask about people's behavior is why? Why'd she say this? Why'd he do that? Sometimes the reason's obvious. For example, someone's driving down the street, the light turns red, they stop. Why?
Because they have to. Legally, I mean.
Exactly. In this case, the reason's obvious, so we usually don't question it. But when the reasons are not so obvious, and especially when the behavior could have negative consequences, we're more likely to feel a need to explain the causes of the behavior. Social psychologists have a term for this, for the process of explaining the causes of behavior. It's called causal attribution. And one theory suggests there's a pattern in the way we go about attributing causes to people's behavior. According to this theory, there are two categories of reasons: internal factors and external factors. Again, Lisa, say you're driving down the road and all of a sudden some guy turns into the lane right in front of you and you have to slam on your brakes to avoid an accident. How do you react?
I'd probably get very angry.
Because?
Well, he's not paying attention. He's a bad driver.
So you automatically attribute the driver's behavior to an internal factor. He himself is to blame because he's careless.
So if I'd said it was because of heavy traffic or something, I'd be attributing his behavior to an external factor, something beyond his control.
Good. Now, how do we usually explain our own negative behavior?
We blame external factors?
That's right.
Number 35. What is the main topic of the discussion? Number 36. According to the professor, when are people likely to try to explain someone else's behavior? Number 37. The professor mentions an example of a driver who stops at a red light. What does he use the example to demonstrate? Number 38. According to the discussion, how do most people explain their own negative behavior? This is the end of Part B. Now we will begin Part C with the first talk. Questions 39 through 43. Listen to part of a talk in a geology class.
Today, I'd like to talk about some of the changes land can undergo, specifically desertification. That's the process through which land becomes part of a desert. Now, a desert is defined as a place that receives a certain maximum amount of rainfall, but you may not know that it usually takes more than just a lack of water to turn productive land into a desert. There are several specific human activities that, when combined with a lack of rainfall, encourage desertification. For example, overcultivation, growing more crops than the soil can support. The soil loses nutrients, so it needs either to be fertilized or to be left unused for at least a season. But if neither of these things happens, if these nutrients in the soil don't get replaced, the damaged soil stops producing. Another cause of desertification is overgrazing. That's when the grasses and trees and shrubs of an area are expected to feed more animals than they reasonably can. Too many animals eating in the same area will kill the vegetation. And because it's the roots of this vegetation that hold much of the soil together, when too much of the vegetation dies, the soil erodes. But maybe the most ironic example of human behavior that can lead to desertification is irrigation. It may seem to run counter to common sense to say that introducing water into an area can cause it to become more like a desert. But there are plenty of bad irrigation practices that do just that. Bringing in too much salty water and then not providing adequate drainage for it will fill the soil with salt and turn an area into a desert.
Number 39. What is the main topic of the talk? Number 40. How is soil damaged by overcultivation? Number 41. What is overgrazing? Number 42. How does overgrazing damage soil? Number 43. According to the speaker, what is the main problem with irrigation? Questions 44 through 47. Listen to part of a talk in a biology class.
I've mentioned how DNA has solved many mysteries in biology, and today I want to talk about how it might relate to hypotheses about the travels of the green turtle. Every winter, some green turtles make a 2,000-kilometer journey from Brazil to Ascension Island in the mid-Atlantic, where they mate and lay eggs. But the question is, why do they travel so far to lay their eggs? One researcher hypothesized that there are two parts to the explanation. One is natal homing, the instinct that drives green turtles to always return to the beach where they were hatched. The second part has to do with continental drift, the theory that the positions of Earth's continents have changed considerably over time. Brazil and Ascension Island were once much closer together, and continental drift drove them apart. But the turtles kept on going back to the island where they hatched. However, another scientist questioned this explanation on the grounds that it would be very unlikely that conditions would allow generations of turtles over hundreds of millions of years to keep going back to the same nesting grounds every single year. So, what is the connection to DNA? Well, there are groups of green turtles that nest in locations other than Ascension Island. If green turtles always return to the place where they were hatched, then the turtles that had been going to Ascension Island to nest would have been genetically isolated long enough to have DNA that was very different from the green turtles that nest elsewhere. But when scientists examined DNA from these turtles, their DNA wasn't that different from the DNA of the turtles that go to Ascension Island. The upshot? Well, we still don't know the answer to the question about why a certain group of turtles go to Ascension Island. But this study was a nice example of the usefulness of DNA analysis to biology.
Number 44. What does the professor mainly discuss? Number 45. What do green turtles do when they get to Ascension Island? Number 46. According to one hypothesis, why do green turtles go to Ascension Island? Number 47. How is DNA used in the research on green turtles? Questions 48 through 50. Listen to a talk in a United States history class.
As I'm sure you're aware, history is full of people who were so admired that over the centuries they've become almost mythical figures. George Washington's a good example. Everyone knows the story about his chopping down a cherry tree when he was young and bravely confessing to his mischief later. People greatly admired Washington's integrity, and so out of that, this story evolved, even though no one knows for sure whether the incident ever occurred. Then there's the American Indian Pocahontas, beloved by history for making peace between the English colonists and the American Indians. The history of her life has also become somewhat mythical. At the Historical Society's exhibit next week, we'll see many artists' works depicting the major events of her life. And while we're there, keep in mind that much of what you'll see in the paintings reflects how much she was admired, but not necessarily the fact of her life. For instance, one painting shows her saving the life of John Smith, an English colonist who had been captured by her tribe. Smith, so the story goes, was about to be executed when 12-year-old Pocahontas laid her head on top of his. Tells you a lot about her courage. But John Smith himself related this story only years after Pocahontas had become famous, which suggests that he may have embellished the truth a little bit, as many of the works that we'll be seeing next week may have done. Something else to remember. Paintings portray her physical appearance in many different ways, but always flattering ways. Yet only one picture of her was ever painted while she was living.
Number 48. Why does the speaker mention the story about George Washington and the cherry tree? Number 49. According to the speaker, why is Pocahontas famous? Number 50. What does the speaker imply about most of the paintings of Pocahontas?